Greetings Cancer, and welcome to your in-depth monthly forecast for August 2023 for the Sun or the Ascendant. I'm going to give you some standout details to look out for, but please stay with me. I will explore in much greater detail all the ins and outs particularly relevant to your sign. And one of the things we must do as a Cancer is look at the progress of the moon, your ruler. So on the first day of this month, we have a full moon in the sign of Aquarius. But then we have a new moon on the 16th, which is going to be clashing with the chaotic and rather erratic vibe of Uranus. But as the month draws to a close, we have a blue moon, a second full moon of the month, this time in the sign of Pisces, very close to Saturn. But you do have Venus continuing its journey in your second solar house, so I need to unpack that for you. I'd like to share with you a very special opportunity. This year is absolutely racing by, and year 2024 is speeding towards us. However, if you order your year 2024 personal horoscope forecast now, based on your unique birth data, I will prepare for you the rest of year 2023 free of charge. But also within my package of 30% off, you can get your character analysis report, your life roadmap. This helps you to understand the patterns that have played out in your journey so far. Some of these definitely give us opportunities, but others can be more challenging, and a more intimate understanding of these helps us to seize our potential more firmly. Please see the link beneath this video for more on this unique opportunity. So Cancer, as this month begins, as I mentioned, there is a full moon. For you, this is asking you to grapple with balancing the ins and outs around your everyday finance, where the Sun and the retreating Venus are located, and the position of the moon in house 8, very much about where you're most invested, whether it's in a partnership, emotionally, financially, could be with a friendship, could be even with an interest. So you're being asked to make sure that things are in good alignment between what you need to focus on in the here and now, and how much resources or how much energy will be taken over the next couple of weeks. But you do also have, from the 1st to the 4th, Mercury, the planet of communication, in the 3rd house of your situation, which is very quick-witted, and it's in the sign of Virgo, which adds precision to those quick wits, in an opposition with Saturn. And this becomes exact on the 2nd. If, when you're thinking about those financial issues or where you feel most invested in terms of your passion, if you find yourself feeling a little bit unsure how things might develop, it wouldn't be a surprise, because Saturn can deplete the vitality of Mercury a little bit, but I want to provide some reassurance. Because on the very first day of this month, Mars in your 3rd house, also like Mercury in the sign of Virgo, is in a storming link with Jupiter. Jupiter, the planet of growth, of optimism, of good fortune, and that's in the part of your situation to do with your future hopes. So it may be that your desire and passion to get to something that really excites you just needs to be tempered by a little bit of someone else's opinion. Maybe things won't move quite as quick as you would like. Maybe there is something that's not quite in the order you would prefer, but keep the faith. So I think that's essentially what Jupiter's saying to you in its alliance with Mars, because that's a very exuberant, motivating angle between these two planets. But also in the first 10 days of this month, Jupiter is in a square with the Sun. This takes a little bit more care because, again, it's a very optimistic alliance, but it's one that can almost see us over-egg the pudding somewhat. So important when we are setting those aspirations for the future that we are making sure that our budget can support whatever our aspirations are. But you may find yourself connecting with people in a group or a friendship circle in a really upbeat and promising way at the start of this month. And that's reinforced even more when in week 2, Mercury, though now in its pre-retrograde shadow, which starts on the 4th, and it becomes fully retrograde on the 23rd, that is also forging a great link with Jupiter. So I think this month has some very exciting conversations and ideas and energy at its very outset. It's just that Saturn being in opposition to Mercury for those 4 days could give could see some fear or some caution creep in when you're being asked to really believe in what you're doing with the fullest amount of confidence. But it is important to be very grounded about resources. But if anyone can manage resources shrewdly, it's a Cancerian. You have an absolute gift for it. But what about Venus? Well, yes, Venus is still in retrograde. So if you had been on a diet plan, Venus retrograde in the 2nd house could be testing that, because anything that's remotely calorifically gooey or enriching could prove to be incredibly tempting. But also, it is asking you to be a little bit more cautious with your resources, for sure. But Venus isn't just about money, it's also about how we think about ourselves. And because Venus comes into a conjunction with the Sun at the heart of this month, which is exact on the 13th, in traditional astrology this is called the Cazimi, I feel despite the retrograde, and because the North Node in your sector of success is feeding Venus in a very positive vibe through the first week of this month, I feel that some kind of breakthrough could occur at the heart of the month, and that could be very gratifying. But what about love? Well, Venus and love in Leo is very proud, isn't it? So it's important to not let too much pride get in the way. So if there is someone you really like, but it's not going quite in a straight line, don't get too hung up about that. The important thing, I think, is to keep the lines of communication open. It's just that Uranus, since it's been in Taurus, has been making you much more outspoken, much more rebellious. And if you feel that someone is not reflecting your values, someone who wants to spend time in your life, you may see it that this is just a rental. This is not a full occupier lease. And I think that something could spin out, certainly from the 12th to the 19th, and through the new moon, which occurs on the 16th, if you feel that someone is not worthy of what you're trying to set up in your situation. So Uranus can create a need for space, it can create some turbulence, but it can bring truth into a situation. So I think if there is a friend, for example, who takes you for granted, especially your generosity and kindness and support, I think Uranus could see you push back if you feel that is being taken too much for granted. But then on the 23rd, the Sun glides into Virgo, moves out of your 2nd house and into the 3rd house, and I think there is going to be a speeding up. Ironic, because Mercury goes retrograde the same day. How are they going to coexist? Well, the Sun and Mars through to the 28th are going to be very anchoring in terms of pushing you forwards around expressing the ideas that are important to you, and they're very interactive. I mean, you're going to find quite a lot of extra text messages and emails coming your way, but it's just that with Mercury retrograde, some things can be a bit stop-start. Now, Mercury retrograde's reputation for slowing things down, causing glitches and delays is very well known. So we can all prepare for that by making sure that whatever we do as precisely Mercury in Virgo and as accurately Mercury in Virgo as possible. But it's also important to know that it can be an opportunity to rethink things. So, for example, if you've got an old computer that tends to keep going slow and you've been putting off getting it reconfigured, taking it to the computer shop, someone who can clean it up, get all the virus checking software on there and make it run efficiently, Mercury retrograde is a great time to do that. Or to tidy up your immediate environment, so your daily world, the 3rd house, is that much more organized. But I think it is true that a domestic appliance or that trusted device could go on the blink. So important to make sure that we do what we can do to make sure that we've downloaded important information and saved it. And if we are buying or selling anything online, we make sure that the whole process is well rehearsed and thought through, so the potential for things to go wrong is reduced. On the 28th, however, Mars moves into your 4th house. This is a very Cancerian part of its journey for you. It's going to see you thinking about home and your immediate home environment. It could make you a tad defensive over the following 6 weeks, especially if something that's important to you around your security isn't moving as quickly as you would like. So for example, if you're having contractors in to do an upgrade to your home, or you're taking on a new rental or new mortgage, things aren't going at the speed of light. Exasperation can creep in for sure, particularly when on the 29th Uranus joins up with Mercury and Venus in going into a retrograde, which will last through to the 27th of January. Uranus is in the part of your situation to do with friendship, your long-term future, but it's also about you as an individual and manifesting yourself in your connections to others in as authentic way as possible. If you feel you have got pulled around a little bit with the Sun's clash with Uranus this month, I think Uranus retrograde can give you the opportunity to just withdraw a little bit and think some things through, particularly about your longer term philosophies. But the blue moon, which occurs on the 31st, does go across the 3rd and 9th house polar axis. So the Sun and Mercury in its retrograde in the sign of Virgo, house 3, and the Moon and Saturn pretty close together in house 9. If you are planning any kind of travel, obviously with Mercury retrograde, care around ticketing and arrangements is needed, but I think the first 2 weeks of September could be a bit tense around contracts, any kind of movement, if you're sending goods, if you're somebody who wants to interact with someone who can give you some legal advice, things may seem to lumber along at too slow a pace, which could be frustrating. But Saturn sometimes can be such an asset to us because it slows us down a little bit if we are trying to be too impetuous. And I just feel that at the end of this month, there could be somebody that you come into contact with who exasperates you a little bit. Uranus retrograde, Mercury retrograde, Mars into the tender 4th house, Saturn on the Moon. All of that points towards, if something isn't quite going to plan, you could get more easily frustrated. But this is where your great gift for just withdrawing a little bit and weighing things up until you feel really sure of the direction you want to go means that if you can avoid discussions which aren't absolutely essential, give yourself the space to just find the room to think things through, have some discussions with key people, and then you can go again. It's been a real pleasure being with you, Cancer. I'd be honoured if you would like, share, comment or subscribe.